You are looking live at the Hidden Jackpot GovCast from South Florida. Special day today. Stevie B did not make it back, but somebody's celebrating a birthday. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I'm old.
Who's that? Who is that? Who is turning?
When your mom gets you a sash that you don't want to wear, you know you're old.
What happened? What's happening? Hold on. Let's see. What do we got? What do we got?
My mom got me this last weekend to wear it, and she's like, come on, just wear it to dinner. I'm like, I'm not going to show everyone my age, Moms, but here it is.
Because what's happening? What's happening today?
I'm 30.
Woo! Here we go! It's birthday time! It's birthday time! 30 years old!
Bunny ears, huh?
We gotta celebrate! 30 old!
I have this one too.
Oh, there you go!
Thank you.
Stevie Wonder's the best.
You remember the songs we played for your birthday? I had to like bleep out words.
I know. I think we played some ghetto rap or something.
That was my mood that day.
Well, happy birthday, Dre.
Thanks. You
got big plans? Where are you going?
Well, after this, my dad wants to take me to lunch, and then going down to Isla Morada.
That's awesome. Going heading down to the Keys.
Yeah.
Have a great time. You're now reached the age of maturity. Now all jokes are aside, 30 years old, time to become a multimillionaire. Doing big things. There you go.
I got to say on the show, this is how I'm making all my money.
Steve left you hanging. It's ridiculous. So look at that. The birthday crowd's hitting you up.
If anybody who's watching is interested in taking Steven's spot,
that's his spot. Look, there's Stevie in Asheville, North Carolina. If you've been to, like, I don't know what they call that, it's famous, hanging off the end of the rock. So hopefully he comes back from that endeavor. So we talked before he left. He's like, he wasn't going to do it. And then I think what happened, I think his wife did it. She went out on the ledge.
Really? Before him?
Yeah. She had to pick first. And he sent it. I go, you let your wife go out there? And then I think he wound up doing it. So they're all set. Cool. God willing, they're heading back from North Carolina sometime soon, both of them. And then you're right. We're going to interview for his spot for the Dean is open, his spot for the GovCast, a lot of things put at risk. So I'll let you know.
Stalker to take his spot.
Yeah, we need somebody to do the research on people, 100%. So good.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, welcome. It's Thursday. Big debate tonight. Don't miss a debate. Go out and vote. I don't want to take a side, but make sure you go out and vote. It's going to be an interesting early November. So watch the debate tonight. That's guaranteed to be entertaining. And when it goes south, when they talk over each other, you can watch a football game. Dre will be on the way to the Keys to celebrate her birthday. And we're so blessed today. We're going over some contract laws, some of the specifics about how to, if you're in the government contracting process, some resources that can help you be successful. Super important. So that's what we're going to cover today. Special guest Nicole Potrroff will be here in just a couple minutes. So super excited for that. Before we do that, though, if you've been following the show, we kind of cover a myth. We take care of a myth. We have 10 myths on this white paper. And so today's myth, Dre, I'm throwing it over to you for today's myth. I'm going to put my headsets on.
Myth number 7. It takes a long time, 6 to 9 months, to win a government procurement.
No, it doesn't. Say it's not so. Here, I don't think I can do that.
I was waiting for you to start giggling because you love that.
I do love the Baker Blast. I've got all this stuff on. It's crazy. Yeah, I think there's another graphic too, right? So everyone, listen, this is the number one thing that stops people from doing business with the government. Everyone feels like, hey, man, this is a 6 to 12, next 6, 9 month, 12-month thing. And this is just one of the most not true things about doing business with the government. Can it take 6 or 9 months? Do some of the big deals you see on TV and some of the $1 billion, $100 million, $500 million contracts, do they take 6 to 9, 12 months? They definitely do. Some of them can take 24 months, 36 months, no doubt. But listen, there are a ton. Can you guys bring the graphic back up? Because I did the last part people feel like is a lie. Listen, government deals are done in just a couple weeks, definitely. Or the last one really freaks people out, just a couple days. And so we've said that for a long period of time. You can win a government deal in just a couple days. And now as you've heard, if you followed us, with COVID, it really is just a couple hours. We've had numerous deals. If you go to govquote.us, you'll see government agencies put out a requirement in the morning and they'll award it in the afternoon. Not just PPE stuff, by the way. The government has to make a lot of things happen. There's a lot of things that are very, very different these days with COVID and trying to stay operationally sound. And there is a ton of business awarded much, much less than 6 to 9 months. It is one of the biggest misunderstood things about doing business with the government. Right, Trey?
And it's all about the dollar amount, right? Because typically, like a lot of times I talk to people and they say, hey, it's all bid work. It's going to take forever, this and this and this. I don't have the time. I'm like, yeah, sure, some of it. But at the end of the day, only 20% of everything the government buys goes out for bid.
Amen.
So think about it. That other 80% that's underneath the spending threshold that the agencies have does not ever go out for bid. It's so much easier to win those opportunities. I've worked with a lot of companies just starting out that they're like, hey, I want to work on these bids. I'm like, let's not work on the bids. Why don't you just start calling them? Let's create a relationship, get a couple wins, and then you can respond to these bids if you want. But why start big?
Amen. And listen, that fact is true. What Dre just said, that only 20% of government spending goes through a bid and RFP process. And listen, that's totally true. Like folks are like, you're just making that up. It's very self-serving. It's not even our stat, by the way. Like if you go contact any of the big bid and RFP notification companies, it's their stat. They'll tell you, like, call Deltek, call Envia, we know by Deltek, it's not my stat. I don't care. I love it. It's helps us corporately when we talk to folks, but not our stat. And so it's amazing that much procurement, because everyone feels like bid and RFP. Are you good to bid and RFP? Right? It's like it's so crazy, that process. It's like writing a bad term paper. And then you only win, if you're lucky, maybe 1 out of 3. Most folks are, 1 out of 4. If you're lucky, maybe 40%. So that's a lot of freaking work. And then just to win like less than half of the things you're doing.
Sometimes I look at these bids. I was on the phone with this guy yesterday. He's like, hey, can you send me the bid document? I'm like, this is like 98 pages. I was like, what do you want to see this for?
Because I want to do it. I want to write a term paper. I love it. I have to use all my skills.
Like, I just want to look at it. I'm like, let me just send you the specs. See if you can respond. If you can, great. If not, then I'll send you the 100 pages.
I want to read all this stuff. Right. You got to read a novel. Then you got to respond with twice a novel. So there is big money out there. Listen, I don't want to poo-poo it. But for folks just starting, we don't recommend you start there. And you can literally, at the end of the month, win a government contract. I just want to let folks know that literally, if you are unaware, just ping us. We'll show you places to go look. And for real things, not just BS, not 1 in a million. I'm not telling you about, like, hey, somebody won the lottery 4 years ago. Like literally you can win a government contract at the end of the week. So please know that is 100% a myth. It takes 6 to 9 months, 12 months to win a government contract. Amen?
Yes, amen.
Great. So the topic we're going to get in today is kind of government contracts. And so folks are like, no. But listen, there's a lot of, as we know, documentation and regulations and some process. And when it starts to go south and when you need an expert, you need to reach out to a firm to help you kind of go through some of the legalese of it. So we're so blessed today to have Nicole Potrroff from the firm Koprince here. She's an attorney at the firm. So thank you, Nicole, for joining us today. Welcome. Where are you hitting us from? Where are you located? Are you in
Kansas?
You're in
Lawrence, Kansas.
Lawrence, Kansas. Isn't
Yes.
that the big jails there, isn't it? Like what's
Leavenworth.
Is Leavenworth in Lawrence?
No.
Where is it? Where's Leavenworth?
It's I want to say like maybe an hour or two away.
Oh yeah, I'm bad. Sorry, that's bad logistics. Sorry,
No, that's okay. That's okay.
You have some friends over there?
Is there
Yeah, back in the day, my old life, I visited, running through. So, hi Nicole, thank you so much. So you can see, look, Nicole has a smile. She's super intelligent. So this show will not be horribly boring contracts. So don't tune out. We just want to kind of give you some resources and let you know some of the things that are accessible to you if you bump into an issue during the government contracting process. So Nicole, can you tell folks about your background and your firm and kind of what you all specialize in?
Sure. So we're a little boutique and we do solely government contracts. That's all we do. Located in Lawrence, Kansas, you'll find most of the big firms that do this same type of law are located in DC.
DC.
We're very unique in that there's nothing around us that does this kind of law. And because of that, most of our stuff's online. Even pre-COVID, we did a lot of Zoom and a lot of phone calls, clients all over the country. I've been with the firm for a little over 2 years. Before that, I did some civil litigation. I'm a big fan of the contracts. That's where I'll be from now on. So,
amen.
Yeah.
And what are the type of engagements your firms help companies with, right? So a lot of our audience, new, starting the government process, what have you. And so when should the bell go off? But like, oh, I'm in over my head here. I need some legal guidance. Like, what are the things you normally see as you bump into clients?
Sure. So we do get some of those calls where people are already in over their heads. We hope they reach out before then, but occasionally we'll get a, hey, I filed a protest and now I'm lost. What do I do? So
that's awesome. I already filed. That is solid. I already filed the protest. Now can you help me?
Yeah, now I'm lost.
Now you've made everybody mad. Right.
Yes. But we do both litigation and transactional. So our favorite are those clients that reach out early on and say, hey, I'd like a government contracts attorney in my back pocket. So I can call you when I need you for a joint venture agreement. I can call you when I need you for a huge court of federal claims protest. And those are great because we can kind of advise along the way. And then protest deadlines are awfully short. So it's very nice when the client tells us the day they were notified that they weren't awarded the contract or whatever it may be. And we have the full time because we get a lot of those like, I don't know, they told me last week. And we're like, great, we'll write 40 pages by tomorrow. So, it's everything in between. We help companies with subcontracts, teaming agreements, joint ventures, mentor protege agreements, all those resources that are great for companies just starting out. Yeah. Some of those, like, I don't even know where to start. Well, let's find you a mentor that does exactly what you do on bigger scales, and they'll be happy to work with you because you have some kind of status or small business, status that you can bring to the table. And a lot of times they're excited to go for those contracts with you. So that's a great resource starting out. Joint ventures is another way to pursue things together with another company, get a little bit of a mixing of capabilities. Yeah. And then we will also go all the way to Court of Federal Claims bid protests. We will do GAO bid protests. We will do SBA protests, size and status protests. And yeah, there's a lot of gray area in between there, but that's kind of the full spectrum there.
Yeah. I think there's both sides too. I think folks, and we'll talk about both. Folks are always like, hey, what's the problems and blah, blah, blah. But what's really interesting, I love when I talk to folks who are in the government contracting world, there's a lot of things you can do to help folks win business, right? Get on the front side of it. Because folks, everyone knows about a lawyer when you got all the bad things happen. But there's a lot of things the law firms can help companies trying to do business with the government actually get on the front side of it, right? Get some of the certifications and all these different programs. Can you talk? Let's talk about the good side first. Like, what are some of the things you can do to help companies win and kind of be positioned to win government business?
Absolutely. So the government has, I'm going to break it down real basic. Tell me if I'm getting too basic, but the government has what it assigns to each contract is a NAICS code. And the NAICS code corresponds to a size standard. So you have to be under that size standard to bid on that contract. Mm-hmm. So further than that, the government can also set aside these contracts for certain socioeconomic statuses. Mm-hmm. Those would be like the 8A program. So you have to be an 8A program participant, women-owned small business or economically disadvantaged women-owned small business, veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned. I think I covered most of the range.
And a hub zone. Right?
And the hub zone, there it is. Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
So all of those are different set-asides, kind of further than small business. And so any of those that you have the ability to qualify for is a huge leg up. There's what we call the rule of two. So basically, if you're 8A and someone else is 8A and you want to compete for something and there's a bunch of small businesses competing, well, it pretty much becomes a competition between just the set-asides, just the 8As. So, and there's some variation there, but overall, you have a leg up and you're pretty much able to kick out the rest of the competition for some of these contracts. Yeah. And that's a decision called Kingdomware, if you're interested in looking into that. But it's really, really important if you can qualify, if you're a woman and you own your business, go for that women-owned status. If you are any kind of ethnic minority or disabled in any way, and you struggled coming up to get this business going, go for 8A status. If you're a veteran, make sure you have that veteran status. That one really just, paperwork. Yeah. So all of these are great. Woo!
Oh! Yeah.
All of these are great ways to get a leg up in the competition. And anytime somebody has even the chance of going for it, we say go for it. Might as well try.
Yeah, it's listen, in the world of government, free and open competition, and then the ability to kind of narrow the competition can be great. And there's a lot, it's not a exact science, right? There's a lot of grayness in there.
Right.
And having a firm like Nicole's to help you kind of navigate the waters, help position deals to get set aside can be huge, have a big impact on the business you're eligible for. And again, there's a lot of folks hear about lobbyists, but there's a lot of nudging or, just kind of like, hey, could you set this aside? Could you do this? So there's a lot of legalese involved in that. Again, not just the people are upset and want to protest, like how can we position the deal, right? There's a lot of good things that can happen.
Right. And the agencies all have certain quotas that they have to meet as far as these set-asides go. So that's where you can get a big leg up too. And just like Andrea was talking about, if you are, 8A or women-owned small business, and you know that one of the agencies, the DOD or whatever, needs to meet a quota, you reach out, you let them know you're interested, and you make it a sole source, especially if it's under the simplified acquisition threshold. So big leg up. And the other thing you can do is, as far as protests, the bad side go, but they're not as bad if you can catch them ahead of the curve. So if you and someone else want to compete for something and you realize it's not set aside for you, sometimes that's just a simple protest, and the agency will often just take corrective action before there's even, you don't even have to go further than that. You say, hey, look, there's two of us interested under this case. You're supposed to give it to one of us. And they say, oh yeah, you're right. Here you go. So
sorry about that.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the best kinds of protests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you help them get any of the, like if somebody was to come to you, do you help them get any of these certifications too?
Oh yeah, we help with all the certifications. And actually SBA just rolled out the new women-owned small business certification, which is through SBA, beta.certify.sba.gov. I think I got all those dots right. But yeah, that's brand new process. So we are like here to help people that are trying to navigate the new stuff. It used to be self-certification was fine. It's not fine anymore. So if you were self-certified out there, go get your SBA certification now.
What was the web address again?
I think I'm gonna double check, but I think it's beta.certify, maybe beta.sam.certify.gov.
Yeah, and we'll put it in the comments for the show. That's great.
Let me double. Yep, that's it.
No, that's great. So there's SBA, right? So then there's the 8A program, there's the hub zones, there's a service disabled veteran owned, and then there's the woman owned, and then economically disadvantaged woman owned. So there's a bunch of classifications, and all of them can be, if you're not sure, again, a firm can help you navigate where you fit and trying to expand the number of opportunities, and that can be super helpful.
Yeah, and especially with, for example, the 8A program. So there's a couple ways to qualify. If you are an ethnic minority, you qualify as socially disadvantaged, no more questions asked. Now you still have to be an American citizen that's economically disadvantaged and show the potential for success, and that's a whole separate thing. But as far as social disadvantage go, you don't have to be a minority to qualify. You can write what's called a social disadvantage narrative and explain why it's been so hard for you to come up and start your business and get going with your career. And those are tricky. And we see SBA deny those for every reason under the sun. So we help with those a lot. And if you check out our blog, Small GovCon, we have a lot of blogs that are kind of like hacks and pro tips and 5 things you should know. And those are all great resources for people that are, kind of wondering if maybe they'd have a chance to qualify. But that's
right there. It's on. There it is for our audience on the screen. That blog is one of the best blogs out there. They put out Small GovCon. It has a ton of information about the government contracting. So highly recommend. Again, we'll include that in the comments of the show. That blog is amazing.
Yeah, and I'm biased, but it is. I look to our blog when I'm doing research for clients to see, so I don't have to reinvent any wheels. If somebody's already done the research. We'll do a lot of things on there, like pull, weird little spots in the regulation that are inconsistent and kind of analyze them and things like that. So it's a great resource even for us. So I highly recommend checking that out, especially if you're new to the game.
It's great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the positives, right? These are some things that you can do to make it easier to work with them. So I'd say you don't have to name names, obviously, but what are some of one of the biggest cases or craziest cases that you've taken on with one of these, agencies?
So unfortunately, whenever we do these protests, we're under protective orders. Fortunate and unfortunate. A lot of times we're dealing with really sensitive information, like where we're storing nuclear weapons or something like that. So we can't really share anything like that. But we've had Court of Federal Claims cases. We've had GAO bid protests that, I mean, went, 47, 50 pages of protest, and that's complicated. We've had $80 million contracts we've protested, and we've had, $100,000 contracts we've protested. So we've done everything under the sun, and sometimes they are highly technical, and we're talking chemicals and IT, and we're making the legal arguments and relying on the clients for some of that information. But yeah, we've done a wide range of those.
Can a firm, you mentioned the DC firms and you guys, like, can you not get into your cost structure, but I think when folks hear attorneys, they're like, oh my gosh, these huge fees, now I can't even win the business. Can you talk about how does the business relationship work so that folks don't get freaked out? Because for me, what we try to do with our audience is be like, hey, here's some resources, and we want them to feel good about, using them and approaching them. And what your firm does is amazing, again, to open doors. So can you share, like, how do you normally start working with companies, and how you kind of make it happen so they don't feel like, oh, as soon as I call them, my whole deal is messed up. So it's not that way, right? So can you explain to folks how it works? Yeah.
No, yeah. So we are actually able to offer much more competitive rates than most of the big DC firms, just because having a little office here in Lawrence, Kansas is not anywhere near the same overhead as having one in DC. And we're small firm. We only have currently 4 attorneys. So, we keep everything really efficient. We also offer to any new client, any prospective client, a free 30-minute phone call. Of course, we can't give solid legal advice during that time because there's no client attorney agreement in place. But if you're not sure if we can help you or not, call us. We've got some amazing receptionists, and they will schedule the call, and we'll talk to you for 30 minutes. At the worst, you'll get some knowledge out of it and realize it's not for you. At the best, you'll realize, okay, this is, maybe you guys can help me.
Wow, that's so great. Like, so if somebody can call and, like, you'll do a free 30-minute consult and be like, hey, here's what we can do or not do. That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful way to establish relationships. And there's plenty of clients I talk to, and turns out it's a state contract they're worried about, or turns out it's something we just can't help with. They'll at least make that connection. And then, a couple years down the way, they'll call us when they have a bid protest that we can help with. So definitely give us a call, at least get to know us. That's a great way to start.
What are the, as you interact with clients or start the process, are the things you see that are you'd rather, what are the most advantageous clients for you? Are there bad mistakes you see? You know what I mean? Like, are there helpful hints, again, when folks, again, approaching the government market, what are things you see, like, really helpful, come see us, and what are bad mistakes you're like, oh, don't, these are things like you're getting out of the gate bad. So are there helpful hints as folks start the journey before they bump into you that would you've seen that you could advise them?
Absolutely. So the number one thing we see is timelines. We've had bid protests are generally, and sometimes shorter, but 10 days from the day that whatever you find out is protestable is out there, the day you know or should have known. So you can't, ignore the posting online of who actually got the award, and then a week later be like, I'm mad about this. No, you have to pay attention, keep track, and just call before. If there's a debriefing required, it actually shortens the timeline after that debriefing, things like that. So call the minute you think there might be a problem, and we'll tell you, hey, that's premature. You got to wait a little while to protest that. But you'd much rather have that than you call and we find out your due date was yesterday, or it's tomorrow, because we can't, do the same quality of protest there that we can. But we can help with all kinds of things. And I guess the biggest piece of advice we ask clients is to just keep up with everything. Get everything in writing when you're talking to somebody. That always helps too. It's never fun to protest when you. So
Susie told me. Yes, Susie told me so.
Yes, you talk to the agency for a month and you're like, they promised all this, and we're like, we can't just. It helps a lot if you have that in writing. So get everything in writing. Pay attention to deadlines. GAO's website actually has some great, like, laid out timelines for you to go look at. If you're not sure, you don't even have to go try to, translate all the regulations. You can just go peek and say, look, this was the day I got notified. I think mine's due this day.
GAO for our audience. GAO stands for?
Is the Government Accountability Office. That's where most of our bid protests go.
Yep.
There's a few things that go, like Court of Federal Claims. You can go to Court of Federal Claims if you don't like the result of your GAO bid protest pretty much, or you can go there for certain things like if an agency is supposed to stay an award and doesn't, GAO won't cover that, Court of Federal Claims will. And then our other protests we see are at SBA, Small Business Administration. And those are things like, hey, this awardee says it's a woman-owned small business, but I know the guy's pulling the strings. Things like that we can also protest, but those are on really tight deadlines too.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just take a step back? I think for maybe some of our audience folks are freaked out. Can you share at a 100,000 foot level the concept of protesting and kind of pushing back? Because in the private world, that really doesn't exist unless you're taking somebody to court, right? But in the government world, a lot of it can kind of be reprocessed or looked at again. And so can you share with folks at 100,000 foot level, what's the protest? What's that concept look like, which doesn't really exist a lot in private industry?
Right. And don't get discouraged or overwhelmed. It is something that you can start your first protest, keep it super simple, not a big deal. But what it basically is anytime, and it doesn't have to be a competitive bid. It can be a sole source. It can be pretty much anytime the government has any kind of action related to government contracting and you disagree with it, there's a good chance you can protest it to someone at some level. So sometimes those are extremely adversarial, where you feel that you are totally wronged and the government, really gave the award to someone totally ineligible, or just blew your bid off and said you didn't have stuff you had. And those are generally GAO bid protests or Court of Federal Claims. But they can also be a lot less adversarial. You can also protest a solicitation for something really simple. You can say, look, this says you need 20 personnel to do something that takes 3 personnel. I don't have 20 personnel. I think this is overly restrictive. I can't bid because I don't have 20. Right. So then you would protest that. And those ones are sometimes more of just bringing it to the agency's attention and doing it in a way where they have to pay attention to it because they have to respond. Sometimes you'll email an agency representative and not hear back for months. These are posted on what's called EPDS through GAO, and the agency has to respond pretty much immediately with some kind of acknowledgement of who's going to represent them or whatever. So the protest can be, again, something that's just, look, this seems kind of unfair. Or as we were talking about the rule of 2, you think something should be set aside for you and you don't want to compete with 100 small businesses. You could say, hey, this is supposed to be 8A. This is supposed to be women owned. And a lot of times those won't go the full, 90 days, 60 days, whatever the normal GAO protests will sometimes go that long.
Yeah, and I think for our audience, remember, this is our taxpayer money, right? So it's not like private industry where, if Microsoft or Oracle or Dell want to buy something, they can just go buy it with their private funds. This is our taxpayer money. So there is some hey, is it being spent in the more altruistic way that the government and or the folks that are running that municipality have agreed that it should be spent. So it's not just, hey, go out and buy whatever you want. There's a lot of protocols to saying, hey, the government, we just want to spend money. We'd also like to help businesses in our community. We want to help socioeconomically disadvantaged businesses. And sometimes if we're going to award and we have a company in our municipality and one outside our municipality, we may preference the company that's in our municipality because we want to keep our tax dollars at home. So there's a lot of purview. That's the rationale behind it for folks that are wondering, hey, why can we protest something? Yeah. It's our taxpayer money, right?
Yeah, and it makes sense. And what could come across as kind of whiny, look, I think I was the better offer. I don't get. When you look at it like that, it changes everything. And that's why, you make it clear. If we're going to spend, $100 million on something, we're going to make sure that the best value, the best performance, that it's going to an eligible business. So when it's not, absolutely, you have a right as a small business owner, as an offerer, as someone interested in competing, to say, hey, look, this isn't fair to the taxpayers. This isn't. Yeah. And a lot of times the agencies really did just miss something. We do see that. And corrective action is what it's called when the agency decides it's going to, we acknowledge your protest. We think we did make a mistake. We're going to reevaluate. And those are a win. And those, again, kind of like you were saying with the how long it can take to bid, how long it can take to get an award, protests are the same thing. We've seen some go the full extent, months of protest, and then you get an answer at the end. We've also seen some where within a day or two of protesting, the agency says, oh, you know what, they have a good point. And they turn around and cancel the award or reissue the solicitation. So again, it can be a super costly, time-consuming thing. It can also be something worth the shot. They may turn around tomorrow and say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So I have a question more out of curiosity, but and this might be me being naive. I've never met an attorney who practices this type of law. So out of curiosity, what got you into it, or what made you wake up one day and say, you know what, this is what I want to do. Like, this is how I want to live my life.
Right.
Because government contracting is so exciting.
It is. It's exciting. I love it. No, it really is. So I started in civil litigation, and I get bored quickly. Mm-hmm. And so these lawsuits that would take so long, I would find that by the end of them, I'm like, somebody make a decision already. And I loved administrative law in law school. And I researched for my professor, who was brilliant, Professor Rubenstein. And I would always ask him, what can I do with admin law? And he'd be like, well, you could work for the government. Not something I wanted to do. So not that there was anything wrong with that. It just wasn't for me. Yeah. And I actually I found out about Koprince through a website, and I thought, I've never even heard of what this is that they do. So I reached out, and the firm was just amazing. The people were amazing. And, I figured I'd give it a try. So upon giving it a try, I realized because it's so specialized, you're actually able to kind of become an expert in it much quicker than you would if you practice kind of general law. And I love that. I love, mastering my tasks is something I love. Yeah. So that's why, I'm a young girl, younger than many attorneys who consider themselves experts. And I've only been doing it for a couple of years, but I've done everything under the sun in that time. And because it moves so fast, you're not like, look, in my 3 years, I had 2 lawsuits. No, right. I've done hundreds of protests at this point. I've done every kind of contract you can write. And the blog also, you really have to become an expert in order to say, look, I'm an expert enough to blog on this. Yeah. So I love the fact that I've been able to really master this so quickly. And it's just the clients, the small business clients are wonderful. And, if you're a divorce attorney, you're hearing people's divorce problems all day, every day. We get to hear people's stories of success and how hard they've worked to get here. And especially during COVID, when small businesses need us more than ever, it's such an awesome feeling when you help someone get on their feet, you help them get certified, you help them win a huge bid that just turns their business around. It's so rewarding. It really is. That's so cool.
Yeah. And I would say for our audience, 2 things. One is learning to sell to the government will serve you so well for the rest of your career. As we always say, the government's the largest prospect in the world, and almost every company has a government division. And just like on the legal side, to have that skill set, to know how to sell to the government, to know the process, you can use that for the rest of your career, lever it. It's a very unique skill set. And be able to go to a company and be like, hey, the biggest person, the biggest prospect buying whatever you sell is XYZ. And if they're not in that world, the ability to open those doors can be amazing. I'll just tell you that firsthand. I've lived that myself. And then secondly, when you deal with a law firm, like Nicole's, one of the interesting parts is all the big companies have lawyers on staff. We all know this, but sometimes we forget about it. Like, not only are you competing against, say, Dell or Oracle or whoever, or Microsoft, but they have a lot of both lawyers on staff and they have a lot of lobbyists, inside, we hear clean up the swamp. Like, one of those things is like, there's a lot of folks in DC advocating for a particular company, like Amazon, has some of the contracts they do because they're knocking on doors every day and be like, hey, da, 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 da. And a lot of us small business folks just don't have that, right? The procurement we think is really free and open is not. It's already been some lawyers or some other folks, some lobbyists have been behind the scenes already setting up the process. So using a firm like Nicole's and, having them both represent you and help you can be immense, right? Because the other side has a lot of lawyers, right, Nicole? I mean, they just do. Like, I'm sure you've been in cases where it's you against 7 people, right? And
it is. Absolutely.
It's somewhat lopsided against the small business, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's another thing that's really important. You want a government contracts attorney. I can't tell you how many times we've had our small business come to us and say, look, we got some help with this, agreement, the subcontract. So it's fine. You don't need to worry about it. And we always, can we worry about it? Can you give us just a few minutes to worry about it? Because that's the same situation. You're just starting out. You find a big company. You say, hey, I want a subcontract for you just to get my feet wet in this area of government contracts. And they send over a subcontract for you to sign that's been run through 20 attorneys on their side. Yeah, it's right. It's not equal. It's like, no, it's not. If you mess up, we still keep your money. If you mess up, we're going to fire you, right? It's all one-sided. Exactly. Or we can terminate for any reason we want to under the sun and we don't have to give you any notice. So you absolutely want someone who's experienced in this area of law to take a look at it, let you know that you're compliant with the FAR, that's the Federal Acquisition Regulation, SBA's regulations, and just take a look and make sure your rights are being protected. So if you're just starting out, it's especially a great time to reach out and say, look, can you just take a look at some of these contracts before we sign them all? Before you sign them is the way to do that too. Don't sign them and then ask us later.
I think sometimes, especially in the small business world, we can be so anxious to get the deal, we kind of ignore the details. And you know, we know on our side, we get these contracts handed to us, and it doesn't have to be this long, again, multi-$1,000, tens of $1,000s review, but you want to have somebody look at it, because either, my experience, agreements are written kind of win-win and it's fine.
Yeah.
But most of them are written kind of win-lose, and they're lopsided. And just the ability, all you have to do is push back and be like, this doesn't seem fair. And a lot of times they'll take it out, right? They'll help modify it, but they're written, their in-house attorneys write it one way to minimize all their risk and all their liability. And so no,
that's a great point, because they actually expect a little pushback. And we see some of our clients being like, well, look, we got awarded this out of several people. We're excited, this subcontract. And so we don't want to be, and you don't have to be adversarial. You can just push back a little. Hey, these couple provisions are a little concerning. Let's negotiate them. You don't have to say, we are not signing this. You know, just change things a little bit. Most of the time, whether they tell you or not, they're expecting you to push back a little, as long as you've had some legal eyes.
Yeah. And normally, it could be verbiage change, but normally there's typically one or two sentences, right? It gets down to like, that's 90, you know, there's some verbiage, but like in my experience, you go through all of it and there's like two sentences. You're like, if you do anything bad, we're never going to pay you. And you're like, no. Like that doesn't, we're going to.
Yeah. And same with the joint ventures, same with the mentor protege agreements. And you get trickier with those, because those are things you actually sometimes end up having to submit, especially if you're 8A or whatever, and you're going to go for an 8A contract. And we get so many clients that say, look, somebody's in-house counsel wrote this, it's fine. And you're like, well, how familiar are they with the FAR? And they say, what's the FAR? Okay. So, there's very, very strict provisions you have to include, things you have to say. Sometimes as simple as, what's the purpose of the joint venture? We have seen SBA say this joint venture is not eligible for the award it won because they didn't say the purpose. So you absolutely, if you're starting out, if you're doing your first couple contracts, you want to reach out to someone who can make sure you have everything in there. And that's a short little process, much shorter than, okay, we didn't have everything in there and now we lost the contract and we're upset about it. So,
So Nicole, this has been great. I think for our audience, on the backside, there can be how we always think about lawyers and protesting and all that stuff. But on the front side, there's a lot of things the firms can help you get into all these programs that can really help you. So how can folks reach you? How do they reach out to your firm? What's the best way to connect with your organization?
Sure. The best way is just to email us. If you check out our website, just koprince.com, koprincelelaw.com. We can set up an appointment, again, a 30-minute conversation, free. We can let you know whether we can help you now, later. We can give you advice on when we could help you, when would be a good time to call us. And then also, I've got to put a word in there for your local PTAC. That's always a really great resource. And sometimes if you are not sure whether you're at a point of needing a legal opinion or just a little guidance, local PTAC is a great way to go. They can tell you, and we have a good relationship with them. They will often say to us or tell the clients, hey, you're in need of legal services. Why don't you call Koprince or another firm that does that? And if we can't help you, we'll do the same thing. We'll say, look, you don't need a legal opinion on this. You just need some guidance. So give them a call. But yeah, definitely. You can reach us at koprincelelaw.com, and that's got our phone number, our email, everything. We've got Joan and Rhonda, our amazing assistants. They are the sweetest ladies ever. They will chat with you and get you all set up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know, again, sometimes this topic can be boring and folks are like, I don't want to do the contracts, but it can be the deal opening and the deal creation side so important. So reach out. Koprince, they can help you navigate the journey, win some big contracts. And then if you do feel like you've been wronged, obviously on the backside, they can also help you. Amen. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. God bless. Thank you. Yeah, I love that, because again, I think folks always think about law firms like on the backside when it's too late, when it's horrible. And so much with the government part to get certified, to go through 8A and HUBZone and woman-owned and veteran-owned. Like there's a lot of like little check boxes you got to have, and they can help you go through the things. So I love that part of what their firm does to help you win business, not just kind of litigate crappy stuff, but help win business on the front side is amazing. So.
I mean, not that I didn't know that existed, but I've never spoken to somebody who does that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's going to be super helpful. And they can do it in a way that doesn't blow your budget. So don't be cost prohibitive, because you win like a, sizable deal. And like, it just takes one or two sentences in the agreement. It's like sends you sideways, and you thought you were getting pro rata, and maybe you don't get paid to the end, and maybe you need some progress payments. And so just whatever. So, and so before we go, listen, I wanted to remind folks on next Wednesday. So a couple things are changing. So we're going to go, we've had the GovCast every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. We're actually going to go to Wednesday at noon. So we're going to go every Wednesday at noon, the middle of the week. So going forward, so that starts next week. We're going to go noon. And then our first one next week, actually going to be a webinar. If you remember, we had a webinar last month. We're going to do a webinar next month on the 28th, next Wednesday. And so when we did our first webinar, folks loved it, but they were like, man, I need some stuff to get this into my 2020 sales plan. And so that's what we're trying to do. So the webinar, October webinar next Wednesday at noon, we're going to give you a whole bunch of resources to help you set up your 2020 government sales plan. So we're going to give you the trade shows you should go to. What are the organizations you should join? What are all the, who are the organizations you should be a part of? What are the trade shows, the vendors, all the vendors you should be a part of. So we're trying to give you all of the things you need to put together your sales plan. And so it'll help you develop for 2021, because as folks are really planning that right now. So next Wednesday at noon, great. Listen, it'll be super short. We're going to give you a bunch of things to help you lay out your plan, help you be great at setting up your 2020 government sales plan. And then you can leverage that to be a millionaire over the next 10 years, like Dre's going to do throughout her 30s. Right, Dre? Amen.
I hope so.
All right, listen. So thank you, everybody, for being with us. Dre, happy birthday to you. Have a great birthday weekend. Appreciate everybody. See you Wednesday. I'm in full celebratory mode. Next Wednesday at noon, we'll be back. How to sell to the government. 6 resources to help you sell to the government in 2021. See you Wednesday at noon. God bless.